Monetized.
Wait, we've been demonetized.
Well, like I
Welcome.
said, we'd have to be monetized first.
Oh, yes. Welcome, ladies and gentlemen. It is Thursday night at 9 p.m. Eastern, 8 p.m. Central. Gary, did I get that right this time?
I'm going to say yes.
Thank you. First time ever. Ladies and gentlemen, you've made the right choice. I don't know what else is going on in the world at this point, but if you're watching us, you did the right thing. Other stuff might be happening, but we don't care because tonight you're on the American Sci-Fi Classics Track, and we're talking about Batman Returns, a little movie from 1992 in the year of our Bat Lord. Was a long time ago.
Now I have this vision of Jack Lord as Batman.
Should have done it.
How can you make the cowl go around that hair piece of his, though?
I don't know how that would have happened. The whole deal with let's just wait 37 years to do things in between things. They could have had 3 different Batmen between 1966 and 1989. But how many do they have? Zilch. It's ridiculous. I'm going to go back in time, and I'm going to be angry at those people who could have done Batman, but nothing. Nothing. Ladies and gentlemen, my name is Joseph Crowe. That is Garrus Mitchel. I was pointing in the wrong direction. There he is. One internet south of me, one of the many Michaels on the American Sci-Fi Classics Track. I'm going to say, for the purposes of this panel, the best Michael.
You know.
Look, all the other Michaels, take it up with this Michael.
They're not here to defend themselves, so I take the title. Yeah.
And Gary Prime, Gary Mitchel, of course, is with us as always. Other Gary Lindros, might be watching, and if he is not, that's why he's the.
That's why he's not.
I would like to state, however, that I am the worst Kevin.
Yeah. Many people have tried to hit that bottom rung, but nope. Just Mr. Kevin Cafferty, ladies and gentlemen. So tonight, Batman Returns. Here is the thing. 1992, the movie comes out, and because it was my last year of college, I had a lot of emotional trauma. It was college. And of course the movie was pretty freaking good. Where were you guys? When did you see it? How many times did you see it in the theater?
Faulkner, go.
Faulkner.
Well, the funny story with Batman Returns is it was my first Batman movie or television show.
Really?
When it came out, I didn't see it in theater. I saw it, renting it from a video store back when you could rent VHS tapes from a store. Watched it, and my parents were like, okay. And I was like, that was actually pretty awesome. I enjoyed it. And my parents were like, we should show you our Batman. And that's how I got introduced to Batman 66. FX was starting up around that time, and they were playing Batman 66. So I went from Keaton to Adam West.
Nice.
But
this
was my first
progression.
Yeah. This was my first Batman film, and it was, I really enjoyed what I saw. So
it's they should have Gary Mitchell, when did you first see it?
I saw it in the theater. I was actually working at a theater at the time. I think I'd started working in the theater at that time. It was either me or my friend who got me the job at the theater was working there. So either way, I saw it for free.
Nice.
And my geek crowd went as a crowd, and we went and we watched it. And I remember emotions were mixed. There were parts of it we really, really loved. There were parts of it we were like, what the hell was going on? I remember us standing outside the theater at like 10 o'clock at night for like half an hour debating the movie and talking about the first one and how we wish that maybe Robin Williams had been the Joker, and that we heard that they're going to get him for the Riddler. And yeah, and Joe has run away. Quick, turn the camera into a Dutch angle.
That comes later. That's
Yes.
Batman Forever.
Yes.
I know.
No, go ahead, Kevin. How about you?
I know that for me, I saw it in '92, and I was a teenager when it came out, and I'd been a big fan of the '89 Batman because it was such a cultural phenomenon. And this movie, as I'm sure we're going to get into, is much stranger. And at the time, I was a little thrown by that, but I've come to really love those aspects of the movie. My abiding memory of seeing the movie at the time is the sequence where Michelle Pfeiffer, Selena Kyle, like becomes Catwoman, where there's the neon, the hello there, and she smashes it and it says hell here. I remember at the time thinking like, well, this is a new height in the art of cinema. Like they're not going to top that.
Well, that is one of the standout sequences of the movie. I mean, Pfeiffer's performance when the door opens and she's silhouetted in the doorway and she looks dead. I mean, they've got her full pale and she walks in at stunned, and as she kind of ramps up to full Catwomanness, and Danny Elfman's score there, that whole sequence is amazing.
Stuffed animals and the garbage disposal.
Yeah.
I thought I was just like, this is really intense, man.
Yeah.
You know,
Although,
then I saw Reservoir Dogs and some dude got his ear cut off, and I was like, maybe it wasn't that intense.
Yeah. Jessa and I rewatched both '89 and this one last night for me to prepare for this. And at that particular sequence, Jessa's like, "What'd this sock monkey do?"
I think my biggest beef, and this is minor, like many beefs, my biggest beef with the movie is as dramatic as Batman '89 was, with the slow reveal and the dramatic reveal of Batman, you know, when he first appears. When we first see him in Batman Returns, he's just driving the car. And all you see is just him behind the wheel going, like, come on.
Yeah. And it also starts out with Bruce Wayne, like just hanging out in his dark house, just brooding over something, right? And
well, I mean, that's what I was. Yeah, well, that's what I was about to say. Is like when we first see him, to me, that is very classic, you know, modern Batman, where he's sitting in the dark, just waiting for something to happen for him to be called, and it's an iconic scene. I mean, there's a reason we used it on that. On the banner, thank you, Sue, of him standing up in the library with the bat signal behind him. But when he stands up and he staggers like he's sleepwalking, it's like he wasn't even alive until it was time for him to be Batman.
Yeah, that was the first. That was maybe and that they've addressed it in the comics a bunch of times, probably before then, but certainly since then, where they said, really, Bruce is the costume. And Keaton totally portrayed that. That was just one of the coolest Batman things ever. Right there.
It's also worth noting, I think, that especially in the first half hour, Batman is barely in this movie.
Yes.
Yes.
Exactly.
This is a very villain. It's a very villain heavy movie.
It's a very villain heavy movie. And I think it's very obvious from watching it, especially now, that director Tim Burton's sympathies lie entirely with the antagonists of this movie. I feel like it's sort of like, well, I guess I better show Batman again.
And talking about the villains, one of my favorite things about this movie was that it didn't hit me till like years later. That each of the main three villains are a facet of Batman. Penguin is the creature, the darkness, the monster, you know, the fear. Catwoman is the vengeance, stalking criminals, and well, I already said vengeance. And Max Schreck is the rich playboy philanthropist manipulator. They're each one a dark reflection of each side, three sides of Batman. which I thought was a really interesting take on them.
But then Bruce kind of ties it all together with the more ethical aspect instead of the cutthroatness that each of these three villains has.
Right. That's why I said it's kind of a dark reflection, which Tim Burton, it gonna get dark.
Oh yeah.
Had Christopher Walken gone full Walken yet? Was this was certainly not the first time. He was, I think, for me, Pulp Fiction was the first where he just went full Walken. But he's still very Walken in this movie.
This was definitely before every person you knew had a bad Christopher Walken impression.
Yes.
Whereas before Batman 89, everyone had a bad Jack Nicholson impression.
Yes.
So Nicholson was more of a thing, but Christopher Walken, I think, became, capital C, capital W, Christopher Walken after this. But I think this helped contribute to it because it's a very Christopher Walken performance.
Yeah.
But compared to some of his later stuff, it is a bit subdued, even when he is over the top. Like, one of my favorite moments with him, though, is when Selena pops back up in the office, and he could have really chewed the scenery after she and Bruce leave. And the son's like, is she going to try? And he's like, if she tries anything, I'll just throw her out of a taller window.
So good.
Mm-hmm.
So good. What, I have, and I want to talk about for sure Michelle Pfeiffer as Catwoman. Great, obviously, of course. Her costume became the Catwoman forever since then. And it's
iconic.
It became iconic. And that's just what everybody thinks of as Catwoman. While, Batman's costume changes here and there, but that's Catwoman to everybody. And as well it should be. But Gary, were you there at Dragon Con back in the 90s? I think you were, because I think we've had this discussion. At the masquerade when they had a marriage proposal on stage. And it was Catwoman in the full Michelle Pfeiffer gear, but the person who proposed to her, was he dressed as Batman? No, he was not. Come on. Why? What?
Because he was slack.
Slacker. I wish nothing but happiness for that couple. I hope all these years later they're doing great. But to that husband, if you are watching, you messed up, buddy. Your future wife was dressed as Michelle Pfeiffer Catwoman. And as I recall, he was just wearing what I think was just Jedi robes. Come on. You got... And yet, I'm still mad about this 20-something years later. Come on. Step it up, buddy. Really, everyone should step it up. If you're going to propose to somebody, you got to go for it. And this guy's, like, you know what? I'm going to do it in front of umpty thousands of people. But I'm not going to dress up as Batman. That's too much trouble. I'm still angry.
I see that.
Again, I hope they're happy.
This is Joe's Crime Alley moment that turned him into a vengeful Dragon Con stalker who goes around to marriage proposals and shuts them down if the people are not dressed in elaborate enough costumes.
Little known fact, that guy who proposed to Catwoman, his name was Joe Chill.
Exactly.
I find it amazing that Michelle Pfeiffer wasn't the first person cast in this movie because she's so perfect in it. It was originally Annette Bening, and she had to drop out because she got pregnant. There's also this story that Sean Young
was desperate for the role.
Tracked down Tim Burton in a homemade Catwoman costume. No one proposed to her, but she didn't get it. And I think that's one of those things where had she gotten the role, this would be like some sort of like iconic Hollywood story. And because she didn't get the role, it essentially ruined her career.
I think
Y- w-
years after she came on like a talk show, like Joan Rivers maybe, in the homemade cat suit, and it was uncomfortable. Maybe I didn't think it was uncomfortable. I didn't see it live, but years later I saw that footage on YouTube and I was like, I think I see why they
Look,
did.
everyone says dress for the job you want.
Thank
well,
you.
yeah.
Thank you.
So I think
Didn't
Sean
work
had the right idea.
Yeah. I mean, if she had gotten the role, it would, like you said, it would be a legendary story of how she got the role, and it would be like, oh man, the dedication.
Yeah.
I'm trying to think of how that role would have changed with Sean Young in the suit though too. Like
Yeah.
I think it would have been like a much more over the top performance than I mean
Oh yeah.
Pfeiffer was definitely over the top with this, but I can't.
But she was
ramped it
but she
up,
was
you
over
know?
the top when it required it, because at the very beginning, when she's still just basic Selena Kyle, she's
Mhm.
very subdued. She's very kind of cowed by the world. I mean, I love the whole when she's introduced and she's like, I have an idea. Well, more of a question, and then she berates herself about it.
Hmm.
So we know that there's something lurking under the surface. And also, especially when she finds the taser and tases the unconscious clown.
Yeah, her
Oh,
Michelle Pfeiffer's range in this film is just amazing. The transformation from Selena into Catwoman, and just how she continues to she basically kind of in a sense levels up to become Catwoman, and then she starts to fall apart again. Yeah, as she gets further and further down that path, losing her lives as it were. Yeah,
yeah,
it's so fascinating.
yeah. As she goes down the rabbit hole, as she gets crazier, her costume gets a little more and more ripped. More and more of her hair is sticking out.
Mm-hmm.
But she is note perfect pretty much in every scene. I love her delivery on at the very end, which, God, that ending is so. Every time I watch it, even now, the ending from when she pulls Shrek out of the water to Penguin sliding into the water
Mm-hmm.
is such Wagnerian tragedy.
Mm-hmm.
Bruce pleading with her, no, we can be together, we can do this. But I love her delivery when he's ripped the mask off and Shrek's like, what, Wayne? Why are you dressed like Batman? And hers, because he is Batman, you moron.
I think that's the one point in the movie where I just kind of like I double take and stand back, because it's obvious they're about to rip the mask off because the black around the eyes disappears, and it's like, man, you could have cut that differently. But other than that,
I did love when he rips the mask off. They didn't show the effort that they must have gone through to pull that bulletproof Kevlar hood off of Batman's. And I got to figure Bruce Wayne, like, this was not made for. He's like, maybe he starts to rip it, and he's like, man, I really overthought this, or I didn't think this through, because this thing is supposed to deflect bullets, and I'm not strong enough.
Finally, I can turn my head.
Yeah,
Yes.
it's like, look, my neck.
Yeah, but the thing is, he actually looks really cool with the ripped mask off, and it's just Michael Keaton's head sticking out of the costume. Like when he's going through and trying to get to Selena, and Penguin grabs the umbrella, and he does that turn and look at the camera.
oh yeah,
And you see that shift from Wayne to Batman. I mean, there's still a reason we're still talking about Keaton as Batman, and are looking forward to him being in this upcoming Batgirl movie, because he was freaking Batman.
That's the thing. I don't care what they had to do. The quick release. See, that's what. Yeah, Batman does plan for everything, Ryan. But as soon as I heard, like, for real and not rumor, that he was going to be Batman again in something, it was like the heavens opened up, and like, well, finally, why has no one thrown a utility van full of money at this man and allowed him to, and forced him to do this again, many times since? We should have been sick of Michael Keaton as Batman. We should have been like, oh, he's done this for 8 movies. But no. Now, we may never see him in the Flash movie as Batman. Batman might never see the light of day. I bet he's good in it.
Yeah, what they need to do is they need to Army of the Dead it and get Tig Notaro to be the Flash and just film all her scenes and splice her in as the Flash over Ezra Miller.
That could be done. We've seen it. They have the Tig Notaro technology. She's ready. She's like, I can do this.
It'll leak at some point if that movie doesn't come
out.
Oh,
sure.
Yeah.
It'll be back in the olden times. It would have been on a VHS tape on a table at DragonCon. And we all would have copies of it by now. But but now we have this thing called the internet. I don't know if you've heard of it. We're on it right now. It'll be out there eventually. I think they'll release it. Maybe they're waiting for Ezra Miller's medication to kick in. I don't know. A lot of problems.
But getting back to the movie, though.
Getting back to the movie, who cares about Ezra Miller? Wasn't even born.
Yes.
Would Keaton's Vulture have been as impactful if he hadn't been so good as the Batman? I don't know. He's just good.
Yeah, I mean, he did the Birdman movie before he did Vulture with the Spider-Man movies. So I mean, he was obviously on that track. So.
Yeah, there seemed to be like a number of years where he just kind of took it easy and wasn't really in many things. But then Birdman, I think, might have been his. Well, of course, it was Oscar stuff. So maybe that might have been his comeback. I don't know.
Part of. I mean, he's always been an amazing actor. I remember, I mean, every time somebody complains about, oh my God, they cast so-and-so as such and such. Are you like, were you there in 87, 88 when they cast Michael Keaton?
People
everybody's like,
furious.
Oh yeah. It's like, the Mr. Mom? I'm like, you didn't see Clean and Sober, did you?
Yeah. People were like, man, Jean-Claude Van Damme has got to be Batman.
No.
He doesn't.
I remember
Jean-Claude Batman.
I remember reading like Comic Scene magazine and just the angry letters
that
show up in there about Batman fans. Keaton was fantastic in this. I love how he, like, when he's on screen, he doesn't talk a lot, so what he says has more impact. He knows how to play against these larger than life villain characters without kind of diminishing himself, which not everyone who gets into that suit does.
Right. Well, and like I was saying before, he knows when to be Wayne and he knows when to be Batman. And even when he's not in the cowl, you can tell when he's in Batman mode.
Yeah.
And there's an evolution or maybe a disconnect. I haven't decided which one yet, because I did the reverse, Gary. I watched Batman Returns and then I watched Batman, and watching him in 89 Batman was interesting, because this one he's very pensive and very, very light on words and just moody and white knighting, trying to save Selina from her fate. In the original Batman, he's very forgetful and just kind of bubbly, like in his Bruce Wayne persona, like, oh yeah, sure, absolutely, Alfred. Wait a second, what did you just say? I didn't quite catch that, kind of thing. It's a very different kind of character, even in the moments when he's by himself or with Alfred, a very different character.
One of the things I like about Batman Returns is almost the entire creative team don't seem to care that much about being faithful to the comics. No. But it's in a way of doing something like very interesting with those ideas. Like the Danny DeVito Penguin has very little resemblance to what you get in the comics with the Penguin. The plot, watching the movie, it did feel very comic booky to me, just sort of the way the logic works of like, of course the Penguin has a group of circus themed henchmen who live in the sewer with him. Why would we need to explain that? It's just awesome. So I like that aspect of it. I feel like by trying not to hew too closely to the comics. They actually made something that's very faithful in spirit.
Yeah, it's faithful in spirit, and it's also, a lot of people forget that there are a lot of touches in this that harken back to the '66 series. Like the whole Penguin runs for mayor was an episode of the '66 series.
Yes, it was.
And there's one scene in that episode of the '66 where he's sitting there eating sardines out of a jar. So in this movie, he's just eating raw fish like all the time.
Yeah, I've said it before, and I'll continue to say it, that the Keaton and Burton films are a natural extension of Batman '66, but they bring in that darkness that affected the comics between the '60s and the '90s. Where Batman got really dark and broody, and I'm going to go beat everybody up kind of thing, as opposed to the '60s when it was all very light and fluffy. But the feeling is still there. All the henchmen just kind of pouring out of nowhere. You're missing the Bam Biff Pow, but it's still there. They're very, like you said, clownish. Circus themed, and the weird kind of plot devices that pop up, like penguins with missiles.
What I'd say Burton brings to it that the '66 didn't have is Burton has a really dark sense of humor. So this is a very funny movie. And it's pretty dark, but it's not particularly serious.
Right.
No.
That's the thing. I think that that's a good point that you made, Michael. And I didn't really, I think in my mind, up until you said that, really, everyone, and myself included, said that the Schumacher Batman movies were the extension of the '66 Batman. But really, I think the Schumacher movies may have taken the wrong lesson from the '66 movies, and Burton took the correct ones. I see that. I think you've changed my opinion, Mr. Michael Falkner.
Well, the Schumacher films went the other direction because of the violence that was in these two films, right? They're like, we need to make it less violent and less dark. Let's just go completely this way.
Yeah, the violence and the sexuality, because it's, I mean, it's very tame until you think about an 8-year-old watching it.
Right.
And then there's some bits I'm like, whoa, they went there. Like the whole back and forth. I mean, almost everything that comes out of Penguin's mouth is a double entendre. And he's groping that one girl. He's like, when poor Jan Hooks' character, he's like just salivating over her, literally.
Yeah, I watching it this time around, I was like, this element did not age well. You've got the really sexual harassment coming out of the Penguin up to assaulting women, and you've got the Avon type messages on Selina's answering machine of this perfume will make it so that your boss will want you to stay late for a special dinner, and it's like, But it's also still oddly prescient with the Max Schreck storyline of corruption in corporate America kind of thing, and how badly some bosses treat people in the labor movement and stuff. And I was like, okay, well that makes sense. That's still strangely prescient 30 years down the line. But the sexual harassment stuff, I was just like, this doesn't feel good at all.
Yeah. But I remember that McDonald's was the ones that really freaked out over it because they're trying to sell Happy Meals.
Yes.
And collector cups, which I had all the collector cups. And parents were like in an outrage. And then so McDonald's was one of the main ones who brought the hammer down to Warner Brothers, and Warner was like, you can't do this. And that's when Burton went, fine, I won't do the next one. Bye.
Yeah, I had the Batmobile from the McDonald's Happy Meal, the one you push the button and it explodes apart and goes through the alley. That was high
because the '89 Batman was by any metric an enormous hit, and this movie made a lot of money, but Warner's I think viewed it as a disappointment compared to the previous one. And I think there is an element of who is this movie for, and they wanted something very
Tim Burton.
It's for Tim Burton. And I was thinking about between it, the production design and the obsession with outsiders and the dark humor, this is not the best movie Tim Burton has ever made, but it might be the most movie that Tim Burton has ever made. This is the most Tim Burton movie, I feel like.
And
Go ahead, Mike.
I was going to say there was also the expectations of it from Warner, where it's almost reminiscent of the Lucasfilm kind of thing with Star Wars 7, the Force Awakens and The Last Jedi, where it's like, The Last Jedi didn't make a whole bunch of billions of dollars, so it's a failure on our part. It's like, they had a big problem in 91 and 92 with the market of the film overall. Like 91 was a depressing year for film as far as returns went, and studios were hurting really badly. And you get to 92 and it's like, we need a win, and they got sort of a win, but it wasn't quite the win they wanted to.
Well,
the win was Terminator 2.
Yeah, because the big thing is, 89 Batman, it is really, if you weren't there, it's hard to push how big a phenomenon that movie was. I mean, they expected it to be okay, and it came out and became a cultural juggernaut. And I always remember the summer of 89 because 4 weeks running, a movie came out that set the opening box office record. Like Star Trek 5, then Ghostbusters 2, and then Indiana Jones, and then Batman came and blew them all out of the water.
Yeah.
And so they were expecting something on that level. For Batman 89, it was everywhere. It was on TV, it was on the lunchboxes, it was t-shirts. It dominated. And Batman Returns came out, and most people went to it and went, "What?"
Yeah.
The marketing behind 89 Batman was just phenomenal. Like, everyone knew who Batman was, but they actually succeeded in making Batman cool to your average sort of, like, not even your average sort of nerdy kid, like your average kid. It became like Star Wars, where everyone had a Batman t-shirt.
Yeah. And I dug that because that was the first time, as a big nerd, you're like, yeah, I know.
Yeah, it's the starting point of the nerd takeover of culture.
Thanks. I remember, and I don't know why I still remember this. Too many questions. They did a cereal, a Batman Returns cereal. And of course I bought it, and it was okay.
That's the best way.
Was it as good as Mr. T?
No. I think it was like bat-shaped Captain Crunches. Because I remember, Anguish.
Batman cereal and G.I. Joe Action Stars were the same cereal.
Oh my gosh.
Different shape. Yes.
What?
In different shapes.
Cereal. How am I not knowing this?
Possibly the same thing as C-3POs. I mean,
yes. And why not?
C-3POs.
The difference is the Batman cereals taste like anguish and disappointment and shattered dreams.
And like Gary, I spent this week watching the 2 Tim Burton Batman movies for the first time in a while to prep for this. And one thing that really struck me too was, like, and I don't know if this is specific to Batman, but Batman is such a malleable character that he lends himself to these types of movies. He lends himself to the Lego Batman movie. He lends himself to
everything.
The animated series, which came out at roughly the same time as this movie debuted. He lends himself to these dark Christopher Nolan movies. They're all good. And I don't know if any other superhero characters that that are that now. Like, I don't know if you could do that with Superman. I don't know if you can do that with Spider-Man.
I think you can with some, which is why some of those superheroes really stick around. Like, there are always some superheroes who are niche popular outside of nerddom, but most aren't. But you have Batman, Spider-Man, Wonder Woman. Superman, Batman, Spider-Man, Wonder Woman. That's, you're never going to see like
Captain
Spawn Captain Carrot. You're never going to see like a Spawn series really take off. Now watch next week, something with Spawn will come out and it'll be, but I mean, they really are, there's something where there is that I could be that person, or I want to be that person, that inspiring level that most real good heroes will get. And I mean, like Captain Kirk. I'm talking like Robin Hood. I'm talking
Sherlock Holmes.
Sherlock Holmes. There's something about Batman that has that, and it's because I think his drive is so simple. of my parents died. I'm going to make sure that doesn't happen again. And that is open to being, like you said, interpreted in so many different ways that we can get Batman, the animated series, and then Batman Brave and the Bold, which was part of the whole point of Batman Brave and the Bold, is Denny wanted to go, look, we can do goofy Batman and it's still Batman.
Yeah, I mean, like, you've got Batman and Spider-Man were the two that popped out there, where it's basically like there's something wrong in my neighborhood. Oh, there's a Ghostbusters reference in there somewhere. What can I do about it? Well, Spider-Man goes out there and is the friendly neighborhood Spider-Man fighting crime. Batman, even though he comes armed with a credit card, basically has no powers. It's just, I build things, I go. You think about Superman, what's the first thing you think of? He's got superpowers. He flies, he has X-ray vision, that kind of thing. He's still a Boy Scout, but he relies a lot more on the powers than these other characters do. Even Captain America, even though he's a super soldier, he's still built around, I don't like bullies, I'm going to dispose of them any way I can.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. That's one of the things MCU. I've always loved Captain America, but what the MCU has done, I think, has elevated. This is a whole other panel, but has elevated Cap to that level of Batman, Superman, Spider-Man.
Yeah.
But yeah, going back and rewatching the two movies, though, especially watching them back to back, is kind of seeing the growth of Burton's control over the project. Because the first one is much more stripped down. It's much more streamlined. The sets are still very set-like. But it's still kind of very grounded. And when you hit Batman Returns, it's like, oh, we're in Burtonville now. The aesthetic changes. It's darker.
This is the dumbest comparison ever, but the movie I kept thinking of watching 89 Batman was Hitchcock's Rebecca, where like that is like half Hitchcock and half David O. Selznick's picture, which even Hitchcock would say. But then once he got established in the US, then he's making Alfred Hitchcock movies with a capital A, like he's making Shadow of a Doubt and Vertigo and North by Northwest. And I feel like Batman Returns is when Burton did that. Not that Tim Burton is as good as Alfred Hitchcock.
If you had between 35 and 40 minutes in the pool when someone would mention Alfred Hitchcock's Rebecca, then you are tonight.
Collect your winnings. You were going to say something, Mike?
I was going to say that the key to that was that for Warner to get Burton back, that was his condition. Like, I need less interference. I need to be able to make my movie, because they did put their thumb into the pie for 89 Batman, where this one was like, okay, here you go, just go. That's your condition. You're here. And it's the same for Elfman too. Like, Danny Elfman, he was a bit upset about his score being overridden by Prince in the first film, for better or for worse. I think it's a good thing, but this one, you see, it was pretty much straight up Elfman. Like, there was the one song they made for the dancing scene,
which is so good. Susie and the Banshees. Lola mentioned it earlier. Hi, Lola.
But it's pretty much straight up Elfman, because that was another condition, was like, if I'm going to come score this, I need to be in control of everything.
And that main Batman theme, like aside from the Simpsons theme, might be like the most iconic Danny Elfman movie score.
Oh yeah.
It opened every episode of the animated series, so everyone heard it all the time. But it's like, you hear that, you just think Batman.
Yeah. Burton's score in the first one is fantastic. The main theme, the Ride of the Batmobile, iconic pieces of music. But in this one, he's able to, he evolves it, and it's more bombastic. It's more operatic, to the point where I think it's called Cat Suite, when Selena transforms, actually got broken into two pieces. It's two separate tracks. And it's amazing. I would listen. This does what a good soundtrack or what a good score should do, is if I listen to this score, and I will do that, I've got it in my player, I can't help but see the scene of the movie in my head to go along with it.
Oh my God. Sherman mentioned Bat Dance in the comments, and like, I love Prince, but how was that a #1 hit?
Because Prince.
And because of that movie was just such a cultural juggernaut.
Yeah, that's pretty much it. And
Party Man is by far the superior song.
Party Man.
And it's like you said before, Kevin. Elfman's score for this, especially that theme, it's what you think of when you think of Batman. Even watching the Nolan trilogy or anything that Snyder has done with Batman. When I think of Batman, I think of the Elfman theme.
Yeah, well, that's one of the moments that I really popped in Snyder's Justice League is when Batman is on the gargoyle and we get the Burton theme for a few bars, and it was just like,
Yeah.
this movie is awesome, and then went back to being Zack Snyder.
Right.
Yeah, come at me, fanboys. Come at me. But yeah, and
what you meant to say, I think, is "come at you, Russian bots."
Right.
yes.
But still,
Release the Elfman cut. Wait.
Yeah.
what?
No, but I mean, the music
And
is
Soviet
amazing.
Russia cut release you.
Yes. and we mentioned it earlier, thinking about and mentioning the one song that's in the movie, which Burton or Elfman did co-write with Susie and the Banshees, the Face to Face, which is a great track, which plays at that the masquerade ball at the end. We mentioned this earlier, the fact that Wayne is the mask. That's one of the reasons I love that scene at the end, is when he and Selena both show up in costume of their normal selves. Like, that's the people. And again, talking about the two of them acting, when they get to the moment with the mistletoe and they realize who they are, watch both of their faces. It's astounding. And especially the way when he pulls her close and she goes, do we have to start fighting now?
Oh,
and it's an amazing character moment too, because it is you kind of expect the slip from Selena, because she is slipping at this point. My whole goal is to kill Max Schreck, but then you don't expect Bruce Wayne Batman to make that kind of mistake. But it's like he shields down around her. He's just like completely open. And you see that vulnerability in the fact that he messed up by giving her the countersign on the mistletoe thing. Like, oh crap, all the cards are on the table now.
there was a. I wanted more toys from this movie. I wanted remote control penguins. Come on, guys.
That's why they brought Schumacher in, to make it more toyetic.
Yeah.
Yes.
Exactly.
But the set pieces. Now, I did want to mention this. You have to really look for it. You don't have to look for it; just Google it. But Batman '89 is a DC comic now.
Yes.
I got Sam Hamm, the writer of the first one, to do,
and the second.
Real?
He's one of the writers.
Okay.
He wrote a draft. I think the screenplay is credited to Daniel Waters, who did Heathers.
Oh,
I think they both get a screenwriting credit. It's either screenwriting or a story credit, but yeah.
Sam Hamm was involved though, but yes.
Yeah, but they brought back Sam Hamm for his Batman 3 script, and Marlon Wayans plays Robin in it, or they drew Marlon Wayans as Robin in the thing, but it's really good, and I would like to have seen that movie, but it's just a hoot to go back to that universe, I guess.
Yeah, because that's one of the big tragedies for me, that we didn't get the Burton's Batman 3, is I wish we had seen Billy D. Williams Two-Face.
Yeah.
Oh yes. You want chewed scenery? That would have been nothing left of any set.
Yeah, I know he would have been just astounding.
Yeah. I don't know. Obviously, you're watching Batman '89, and then they introduce him as Harvey Dent, and all of us, all the big nerds in the audience were like, and then nothing ever happened with it, but that would have been pretty sweet.
And
Billy Brooks asked, yes, Kenner was still around at that time.
Kenner
never really went away.
I don't know. I don't know. We didn't have it.
That would be a question for Dave West, friend of the track of
Dave West.
Yes,
could've-
the toy guy who you see him at DragonCon
Yeah.
on Geek Year in 1992.
Stop
So,
him from whatever he's doing and say, "Tell me about the Batman Returns action figures."
Oh,
So,
and head of research Ryan Schweck says yes, it was Toy Biz who did
thank you,
those.
Ryan. Yes.
Especially since everything about Tommy Lee Jones' performance in Batman Forever is terrible. Except for the behind the scenes story of him reportedly saying to Jim Carrey, "I cannot sanction your buffoonery," which may be the greatest thing a human being has ever said to another human being.
This is why I have a love-hate relationship with Batman Forever, because Jim Carrey as the Riddler, okay, but the Two-Face thing, no.
And he did it strictly because his kids begged him to do it, if I'm understanding.
And I get it, man. I get it.
That's why I'm doing this panel. My kids were like, "Dad, talk about a Tim Burton movie at 10 o'clock at night." Please.
No. My kid said, "If you do a Batman Returns panel, I'm leaving the country."
And she did.
Really?
I also feel like we have to, because we haven't mentioned him much at all, we kind of have to talk about Devito's Penguin for a bit.
We do.
Which, again, like you said, Kevin, not really comics accurate at the time, or now even. I mean, he's never really been that level of a freak, but that was Burton's vision, and it's a hell of a performance.
Mm-hmm.
The thing is, I liked just from, I mean, how many short penguin-looking people are there to play the Penguin? And I think Danny DeVito is one of those guys. You were like, well, he's got to play the Penguin, and he did, and he's good. It's he's crazy, and I dug it. But
and I love the fact that he's got a plan, and it's a pretty simple, straightforward revenge plan. And as I said earlier, and Ryan reminds us, it's a parallel between Wayne and Oswald. You know, they're both the scions of the rich, except that one got thrown in the sewer and the other one lost his parents. But he has a plan, and then he's distracted from it by Shrek for his plan. And then when that falls apart, he's like, all right, back to my original plan.
Yes. How naive we were to think that a recording of a politician saying something untoward leaking would like tank their career.
Yeah. How hopeful of Mr. Burton.
It's a more innocent time. And Burton clearly loves that character more than any other character in the film. So they spent a lot of time on making his death scene really poignant, and that performance, I think, might be the most bonkers in the movie too, which I like you said, the robot like the penguins with the jetpacks. Like when I first saw the movie, I was sort of like, is this a good idea? And now I'm 100% on board with it.
Oh yeah. Between that and him with the ride you would find outside of the Kmart, you know, that's shaped like the Batmobile. So when he takes over the Batmobile, he's just riding this thing.
And it even has the little thing, you know, for you to put your quarter in. The bat. I forget exactly what it was labeled. It was the bat something, and he's in there and just.
I mean, it was so over the top. It was a good counterbalance, I think, to nearly getting upstaged by Michelle Pfeiffer's Catwoman because of the emotional trauma that they explore with her. And you just kind of go back over to this, you know, all the sexual harassment stuff we've talked about before aside, you know, it's the zaniness, the off the wall. I mean, who would have thought after
completely unhinged?
Oh yeah. I mean, who would have thought after Batman 89, like, you know, the shields go up on the Batmobile and it's a perfect tank, you know, and then this one, within how many minutes, like his gang of circus monkeys have gone over there and have torn the thing up and rewired it and everything. It's like, okay, whatever. I'm rolling with it. It's fine. It's zany. It's fun. Let's go.
I do think subsequent
and some
movies...
of his. Oh, go ahead.
Oh, I was going to say, I do think subsequent movies are hurt by trying to shoehorn too many villains in. but I think it works for this movie.
Yeah. Well, each villain has an agenda that overlap, but would still work without the other villains. And it works because it's a confluence, a perfect little storm against Batman. And then as soon as they stop being advantageous to each other, they ditch each other. Like I love walk-ins when we're I played this down like and the crowd turns on Penguin. Shrek walks off and gives him this little sorry, didn't work out of here. I mean, that's a beautiful little moment. And I also love, but I was gonna say I love Devito's little deliveries, like when Catwoman shows up and then leaves after blowing up he goes, I saw her first, and does the fly off on his helicopter umbrella, or why is there always someone who brings vegetables and tomatoes? Which is a great observation.
The scene where Catwoman eats a bird, like puts a bird in her mouth, which apparently was not a special effect. Michelle Pfeiffer actually did that. Is amazing.
Yeah. A real bird. And she's like, if I had known how bad an idea that was.
Movie magic.
Movie. Yeah, back then you had to eat birds.
Yeah, and then Kevin touched on it earlier, the fact that they made his death hit. I mean, it really does almost bring me to tears sometimes watching it when he comes out of the water, is like, oh, that's a lot of internal bleeding. And just the way, again, his delivery, when he pulls out that one parasol and it pops up with he's like, I grabbed the cute one.
Well, I think Anthony Davis had said it in the chat too. He said something about how he thought the Danny DeVito's Penguin was a more demonic version of the 66 Penguin. And that's about how I saw it too. Like from the top hat to the umbrellas to all that. But he was definitely like way darker than Burgess Meredith ever thought of drawing this character.
It's, I think, DeVito, and really in the comics up until that point, Penguin was the one who inexplicably you thought he's not as crazy as the rest of them.
No. He was the most normal crook. I mean, he had a bird thing, but he was a cook.
Yeah, and then Batman Returns says, hold my umbrella.
Right.
And crushed it.
And that moment, Billy just points out, that's a great moment.
I do want to give this movie credit too for like casting Paul Rubens at a time when Paul Rubens was toxic and no one would touch him. And I thought it was really cool of Tim Burton, because they had a history together in the past, to give him that role in that amazing opening sequence that's like the inverse of the first 10 minutes of Up in terms of how it makes you feel. Like that, the stylized kind of like Penguin as a baby, and then the parents dump him over a bridge. That to me is like everything I like about Tim Burton. Tim Burton has made a lot of movies, especially in recent years, that I do not like. But that's when I'm like, oh, I remember. This is why people talk about this.
This is before he crawled too far up his own spiral, shall we say. Yeah. He still had people telling him, Tim, that's a bad idea. You want to rein that in a little?
Yeah.
Take it down, buddy. Take it down.
Yeah, there are definitely levels of Tim Burton. You know, the two Batman films, Edward Scissorhands kind of level. Okay, Charlie and the Chocolate Factory. Let's never talk about that again.
I mean, I will die on the hill that the best movie he has ever made is Pee-wee's Big Adventure.
Oh, yeah.
I really like Big Fish. But that's a whole other panel.
A whole other panel. Yes.
But I mean, this movie has the correct level of Burton-ness.
Yes.
And that's one of the things I really like about it, is the fact that while it may not match what was going on in the comics, and it is a bit of a side weirdness from 89, it's all consistent. The tone across the board, nothing feels out of place.
That's the thing. It doesn't feel like you were. It feels like they were revving up to do something that they ended up not doing. It felt like we could get 4 or 5 more of these of Michael Keaton as Batman with Tim Burton, and it would have been something. and then all we got was these two. But both of them. I mean, if you haven't watched them, for goodness sake.
I mean, it's also possible Burton said everything he wanted to say about Batman. With
That's very true.
Yeah.
Sure.
Oh yeah.
I hope so.
And we also haven't talked about my other moment that really sold me on DeVito's Penguin being completely twisted is when he kills. I mean, he outright causes the death of the tree lighting lady. And I love when Catwoman's like, "You said you was gonna scare her." He goes, "She looks scared to me."
It's great.
Mm-hmm.
And Danny DeVito is Danny DeVito in so many things, but here he's the Penguin.
Yes.
And I dig it. I dig it.
Yeah. I do wish there had been more for Commissioner Gordon to do, because Pat Hingle was a very good Gordon, I thought.
These two movies, basically nothing for Commissioner Gordon.
Well, it follows on again from 66, where it was like, oh no, there's something happening and we're the police, but we can do nothing. Let's call Batman.
Yeah, the only thing he does this movie is walk out with Batman's Batarang and he goes, "I don't believe Batman did this, but we found his Batarang at the scene of the crime with her blood on it, but I don't think he did it."
I mean, he did have a much...
Gordon, stop helping.
He did have a much meatier role in Batman 89, of actually, trying to do something with the raid on Axis chemicals and that kind of stuff. But the police in Gotham are still fairly useless.
Yeah.
And the other one we haven't talked about that I think we have to is Michael Gow as Alfred is still the perfect Alfred.
Yes.
And the chemistry between him and Keaton.
And in he also his chemistry with all the other Batman.
Yeah, he is the one consistent high point across all of this era of Bat film.
Mm-hmm.
There's not a lot that grounds these movies, but he's one of the few things that does.
Yeah. I mean, he's got one of the best lines in the first one where he's like, "I don't want to spend my remaining years mourning the loss of old friends or their sons," which is the most deep line in thinking that whole movie. And then in this one, when he's like, just the little moments like your soup, it's cold. It's gazpacho. It's like, oh yeah.
Well, and the through line too, where he's still looking out for Bruce, with Vicky Vale,
Yes.
And they brought it up in Returns as well, but basically just surprise, she's in the Batcave, she knows, and Bruce isn't even upset about it. He's just like, oh, okay, that happened. Well, let's do it. But he's looking out for him in that same thing you talked about. Like, he doesn't want to bury Bruce. He wants to see Bruce have a life outside of the cave.
Mm-hmm. I mean, he there's so much about Michael Gough that he adds to the Alfred thing that I think everybody's been chasing since.
I think the dry wit, it's carried over to the animated series and has existed in one form or another with every Alfred that's come after.
That's the thing. They're like, okay, first find a British person. And then most people don't get further than that.
Right.
What British person hasn't played Alfred yet?
Yeah.
But yeah, it's unsung hero, I think, is Michael Gough in these movies. But I think we're closing in on time. What have we forgotten? The Susie and the Banshees. We mentioned that.
Yes.
So, but yeah, this movie is it's. I think you gotta watch
Doug
it.
Jones. I think it's like this is his first, role.
What?
Yeah, he's the thin clown.
Oh my gosh!
Yeah. Oh, the great Vincent Schiavelli.
Yes, as the organ grinder. Yes.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
There's so much.
One of the best.
This is good stuff.
And I love the poodle lady. She's just so you could tell, she's like, I can't believe I'm putting up with these idiots.
Right.
I can't believe I'm putting up with these idiots.
Yeah.
But what am I going to do? I got an attack poodle.
Good stuff. But check this movie out. I think we would all agree. You gotta watch this movie. Let's do this.
It's also a Christmas movie for you Christmas movie nuts.
Yes. It's not Nakatomi Plaza level Christmas movie, but it's all right.
Yeah, it's blowing up clowns Christmas level.
Blowing up clowns like we all should at Christmas time.
Yeah, Batman straight up murders like 20 people in this movie.
Yeah.
They had it coming.
Yeah.
Michael Faulkner, tell people where on the interwebs you can be found.
Yeah, you can find me at my website, Creative Criticality. It's at creativecriticality.net, where I do all sorts of pop culture stuff, including Doctor Who, which I've been playing with since 2014, doing one episode a week in chronological order and talking about that on the Timestamps Project. You can find all that and more at creativecriticality.net.
How close are you, Michael, to getting up to date, up to current day with?
I am in the Capaldi era right now.
Oh, you've hit Capaldi?
Oh,
okay.
Yeah, I'm in his first season, and if I maintain this pace, which now I just jinxed myself, but if I maintain this pace, I would actually catch up by the 60th anniversary.
I shouldn't have said anything, Michael. I apologize. I've ruined it.
I've been looking forward to it, trying to see, okay, when am I going to catch up? Because, there's a whole new calculus of how do I do this? Because I've been reaching back into the past and reviewing all these things, and now I was like, well, now I'm up to date. What do I do with myself?
We ask that all the time here on the Classics Track. What do we do with ourselves?
So, Kevin Cafferty, tell people where you can be found on the interwebs.
Well, mistletoe can be deadly if you eat it, but a podcast attempting to document every instance of skateboarding in motion pictures can be even deadlier if you mean it, which is why gleamingthetube.net is where you can find my podcast that attempts to do just that.
So good. Gary Mitchell.
You can find me here on Twitter, and you can find me here every other Thursday with him doing this. You will also see us in just a few weeks at Dragon Con, where we will be doing all kinds of panels, including talking about Batman the Batman animated series anniversary, which also debuted this year. We will also be talking about X-Men. We're going to be talking about all kinds of other stuff. And then you can also find me on my new horror-themed podcast, A Podcast of Amontillado. We are on Spotify, iHeartRadio. We're coming soon to iTunes. We're just trying to get Apple to finish verifying that, yes, it's a legit podcast. No, really. But you can find us, search for us, A Podcast of Amontillado. Join our Facebook group. Follow us on Twitter. Follow me on Twitter. Watch me annoy people of certain political persuasion.
Like what Gary said, I'm also here. Every 2 weeks. In a few weeks, we're going to be doing this. We're going to be bringing our little dog and pony show to a convention near you if you're near Dragon Con in Atlanta on Labor Day weekend. We're bringing the dog and pony show. I'll even bring this poster, and we're going to be doing live things at the Dragon Cons. But you guys,
actual ponies or dogs may or may not appear at Dragon Con. Consult your physician.
We're still waiting to get the final clearance on dogs and
clearance.
Final clearance. But ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for joining us for the American Sci-Fi Classics Track Quarantine Panel. If you want to follow us on YouTube, you're already here. If you're watching us on the YouTubes, just search for American Sci-Fi Classics. If you want to follow us on the Facebooks, go to facebook.com/group/American Sci-Fi Classics, or just search on the Facebooks for American Sci-Fi Classics. We'll be there.
Yes, and join us on YouTube, where we have 2 years of content. Like, share, subscribe, comment, monetize us.
You people do not like it and share it and subscribe it. We're going to keep doing these for free forever.
You can't stop. Well, maybe you can stop us, but you won't stop. Well, maybe you will. But look, it's going to be really hard.
It's going to be difficult. We have got hours of free content, and I swear you will watch it. But in the
Speaking of, in
meantime,
2 weeks.
2 weeks. Well, Gary, tell people, what are we going to be doing in 2 weeks?
In 2 weeks, we're going to be doing werewolves, zombies, and giant spiders. Oh my, the horror movies of 2002.
2002, ladies and gentlemen.
Yep.
We're
Eight-legged
moving into
freaks,
this
dog
century.
soldiers.
Ooh, fun. We're
Yeah.
moving into this very century that we are in right now. But join us then when Gary Mitchell will say,
I'm a werewolf, so I don't have to wear pants.
All right.
that's true.
I have strategic fur.
Oh, why? Why did I not stop it? Why did I not stop it right before he said strategic fur? What is happening?
Hashtag
Gary's gonna
strategic
Gary.
fur. Hashtag strategic fur.